City of Jacksonville Beach Planning Commission. Thank you everyone for being here. And we have roll call, please.
David Dahl.
Here, ma'am.
Margot Moore.
Here.
Nicholas Andrews. Colleen White.
Here.
Justin Lerman.
Here.
Justin Henderson.
Here.
Debbie Cole.
And do we have a quorum?
We do.
Commissioners want to mention? Do we have any old business?
No old business.
Thank you, sir. With that, I'm just going to describe a bit about how we run the meeting. So the Planning Commission bases its decisions on competent, substantial evidence, including testimony provided in the meeting. Any person who's not an applicant or agent that wishes to speak will need to fill out a speaker's card located at the side table by the door and turn them into the clerk, and the clerk is there. It's our practice that, regardless of the type of issue we are asked to decide upon, each member of the public is given 3 minutes to speak on each item, and that timer's here. Please refrain from speaking out from the audience, applauding, groaning, etc., as we try to ensure an atmosphere where everyone listening or in attendance is comfortable. And please silence your cell phones. Thank you very much. With that, may we begin with new business, PC 0724, please.
Through the chair, this is PC 0724. It's a conditional use application for a property located at 211 8th Avenue South. The request is for the continued use of an existing multifamily structure under new ownership in the C1 zoning district pursuant to section 34342 D15, which uses the residential medium density 1 standards for multifamily. The subject property has been continuously used as multifamily prior to the current purchase of the owner in 2022. The primary structure was constructed in 1947, as noted on the Duval County Property Appraiser's website. The structure sits on a small lot comprised of the southern 45 feet of a platted lot of record in the Pablo Beach plat. The lot was subdivided prior to the adoption of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan, and therefore is a lot of record under the current LDC. The property owner wishes to perform renovations to the structure, and when applying for the permit, it was noted that the conditional use was never approved for the property for the transfer, since it's located in the C1 zoning district that's required. The subject property is located on a lot to the west of the intersection of 8th Avenue South and 2nd Street South, on the northern side of 8th Avenue South. As the structure was built in 1947, and the fact that the lot is only 45 feet deep and 50 feet wide, along the 8th Avenue South with a total of 2,250 square feet, the structure does not have, nor has it ever had, any on-site parking. The current parking consists of gravel parking in the right-of-way, as is common along both the north and south sides of 8th Avenue South along that particular block. Adjacent uses include multifamily to the east, multifamily to the west, multifamily to the north, and mixed-use residential to the south along 8th Avenue North, across 8th Avenue North, sorry. The proposed use is consistent with the C1 zoning district and the RML standards pursuant to section 34342 D15, and has been and will continue to be used as multifamily similar to the surrounding property uses. Based on the application and analysis in the staff report, the Planning and Development Department is recommending approval of PC 0724.
Thank you, Mr. Pellery. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in and give any presentation?
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address.
My name and address. It's Tamara Uhas, and my address is 13444 Grand Bay Parkway, Jacksonville, Florida 32258.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
What would you like us to know, ma'am, about your application?
Well, I didn't really have like a whole presentation or anything. I just wanted to, I'm representing the new owner, just to continue the use that it's been used before. That way we can make some renovations to the property and get a deck put on there and just kind of make the property look a little bit better and do some repairs that are needed and continue on with its use that it's been.
Do my fellow commissioners have any questions?
Thank you.
Do you have any speakers? I will now open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak? You can always fill out in the card after you speak. Seeing none, I'll close it. So it's back to the board for discussion. Any questions for staff? Any internal questions, or do we have a motion?
I have a comment. I just think that what we've seen over the last few years in Jacksonville Beach, and it's been a big public issue, is density, traffic, parking, and short-term rentals. And I don't know that any of those are going to be made any worse by approving this, but it's an interesting concept, and there were comments about it. So I think that's something to think about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
David Dahl,
Yes.
Colleen White,
Yes.
Justin Lerman,
Yes.
Justin Henderson,
Yes.
Margot Mori.
Yes. Ma'am, your application has been approved.
You can leave if you want.
Or stay.
Yes, you're welcome.
Don't let her
to
kick
stay.
you out.
May we go on to PC 0824, please?
Through the chair, PC 0824 is a conditional use application for a property located at 142 11th Avenue North. The conditional use application is for a group home of 6 or more at a property located in the residential multifamily 2 zoning district pursuant to section 34340D1 of the Jacksonville Beach Land Development Code. Subject property is currently in use as part of a residential treatment facility associated with the Tides Edge Recovery Services. The applicant is requesting to transition the use from its current state as recovery housing with temporary lodging and converting it, the use into a group home of 6 or more individuals. The state of Florida statute 393.063 defines a group home as a group home facility, means the residential facility licensed under this chapter which provides a family living environment including supervision and care as necessary to meet the physical, emotional, and social needs of its residents. Under Florida law, a group home of 4 or less residents is basically treated as a single-family home and isn't regulated by the zoning code. Anything above 4 residents may be regulated as a separate use. The Jacksonville Beach Land Development Code splits group homes into 2 types, no more than 6 and then more than 6. In the RM2 zoning district, a group home of 6 or less is allowed is allowed as a permanent use. A group home of 6 or more is allowed with conditional use approval, as well as halfway houses, nursing homes, rooming and boarding houses, and other similar uses. The current use most closely relates to that of a halfway house. Again, it's attached to a larger treatment organization that has several facilities in the city. The subject site is located on the south side of 11th Avenue North, mid-block between 2nd Street North and 1st Street North. The site has some parking, but based on the applicant's testimony to staff, the residents will not have cars, and the only vehicles that would be present daily would be staff, with the occasional family member coming to visit the residents. But the site has roughly 5 to 6 parking spaces worth of driveway and paved access to the rear of the structure. The site is adjacent to the following uses: multifamily to the east and west, multifamily to the south, and multifamily to the north across 11th Avenue North. The proposed use will be of a lesser intensity than the current residential treatment facility and should not differ in character to that of the other multi-tenant uses in the area. The proposed use is consistent with the RM2 zoning district standards of the Land Development Code and will be more consistent with the surrounding multifamily if the proposed use is approved. Based on the provided application and analysis in the staff report, the Planning and Development Department recommends approval of PC 0824.
Thank you, Mr. Parkman. Will the applicant please come forward and give any presentation?
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address
Jim Griffiths. My address is 207 Oak Street, Neptune Beach.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
So what would you like us to know about your application?
I would like to tell you that the way we've been operating that since for the past 7 years is it's been at a point in the treatment where we give them a certain amount of, let's say, freedom. They can go down and go surfing on weekends. We, of course, supervise. We have supervised people there all the time. And they get passes on weekends if they've been there a while and they're acting, appropriately. And what we're doing is we're changing it to a more contained building. And we never did therapy. We were going to have therapists come over and do therapy with them when necessary. And also we'd have doctor make house calls there. We would have 24 hours staff there. It'd probably be 2 people there overnight. And we haven't had any problems. This is going to be about the same except more contained.
My fellow commissioners have any questions?
How is it more contained?
Because they have freedom to go out of the building, down to the beach, go for walks and all that. That won't be the case now. Because according to the standards of our license that we have there, that we're getting there, they have to stay at the facility all the time, except when they're being taken to maybe to a doctor's appointment away, a specialist or something, but no recreation away from the building. And no passes,
Is the plan to do 2 to a room?
Yes,
Okay, so that's, is it a 4-bedroom place?
we have 2 to a room now. We're licensed for 17 beds there right now. There's 2 buildings there.
Okay, 2 different buildings?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't sure, just had one address on the thing. So you have 17 people in there now,
Right now, no, but we have 17 beds.
and you want to go to how many?
12.
Because you're taking it from 17 to 12.
Yes, because we're going to have offices there. We only have the tech office now. We're going to have offices there where if a therapist comes to do some set therapy with a person, we're going to need to use that for as an office.
So you're going to have employees there.
All 24/7.
24/7.
Yes, sir.
How often in the past do you guys have issues there?
I'll tell you, 7 years ago when we first opened, there's balconies on there. Quite frankly, we had some of our clients going out and making noise on the balcony. That was during the first 6 months we were there. There's been nothing since then. No complaints, no, rowdy activity that needed attention, so to speak.
When you say they, can you describe they?
They,
You say they when, like,
I'm
Your
talking
clients?
about our
can you
our
tell us
clients.
about your clients?
Yes, ma'am. I'm talking about our clients when I say, they.
Okay, can you tell me about the clients?
Sure. They're in addiction treatment. They've been detoxed already and appropriately coming to this facility after they've been doing well. At our Tides Edge facility, they won't be directly admitted there. We'll only bring the people over there that would be more appropriate for smaller places. We've got 20 beds at Tides Edge, and we do detox and residential. We're only going to do residential here.
So how many rooms do you have?
Well, we have 17 beds. We have eight rooms, and then one room has 1 bed. That's behind the tech office. If someone was having a difficult evening, they would put that person into one room behind the tech office so they could, monitor them all evening. But,
What is a difficult evening? Because these people have already been to treatment once.
no, they're in treatment. They're not,
right? They're on their second stage of treatment, so what's a difficult evening look like? In
Well-
theory, they're clean.
Suppose, they get bad news from home and they need more attention and just comfort, that's all. That would be one issue.
Have you talked to the neighbors that are around this location?
Yes, we did, and we didn't get any complaints. Actually, one guy said he thought it was a great idea. He lives right next door. Other people have been more or less indifferent. There was no one that said, oh my God, no. So I don't know. I mean, that was when we first made the application, it was recommended that we go around and tell everyone what's going on, when it's really going to be better for the neighborhood because they won't be out walking around at different times of the day. Won't be happening.
I didn't realize you could predict what would be better for the neighborhood.
Okay, that's just my opinion. I mean, you know.
It's always important to think about it. We appreciate when that happens. Can I ask the differences in levels of staffing, and I'm thinking from, because we get so many concerns expressed about parking. Will the staffing levels be similar to what the use that you have now is, or will it be different times of the day?
It'll be similar. It'll be actually, you know, we have to have 2 people there overnight. We have 1 or 2 people during the day, and we have our vans, we have a van park there. And we haven't had any problem with parking at all, because even the people that are living there now don't have cars there. Their cars are at our other facility because we knew it was a problem, and that's what it's always been. Our other facility down on 2nd Street is the same way.
So you expect the parking needs to be pretty consistent with what you have now?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Where do you get your funding?
We're a privately owned company. And we take all the insurances. We're in network with most insurance.
Are you a nonprofit?
We're a privately owned for-profit company.
Just out of complete curiosity,
Yes,
since they're not allowed to leave, are most of the clients local people? Or like, I guess, is there a draw to being at the beach even though they can't leave the facility?
well, we have a mix of local people and people from all over the country. We have, you know, advertisement all through the East Coast. So I would say we run like 60% local, 40% from out of town. But not leaving, it doesn't matter whether they're from here or not, they don't leave the building. Same way at Tides Edge, they don't leave the building either, in our detox residential place over there.
How do you keep them from leaving?
Beg your pardon?
How do you keep them from leaving?
Well, if they leave, then they don't come back. They're not allowed to come back. It's not like they're out there and they come back and all that. No, that doesn't happen. We call the next of kin, and if there's a big problem, if someone's violent or something, we have a very good police department in the city of Jacksonville Beach. Don't use it very often, but we would if we needed to.
How often would you say you do use the police department for violence?
Oh, gee, maybe once every 6 weeks. Maybe not
Once
violent.
every 6 weeks?
Just someone refusing to leave when we're telling them they have to leave because of their behavior.
Okay, so
That's not a
once
normal occurrence.
every month and a half, you have the cops out to handle
No.
the situation?
No, I wouldn't
If
say.
I asked the neighbors, what would they tell me?
I don't know.
Am
I don't know what they tell you, but every 6 weeks is probably an exaggeration. Because I can't
So
recall
every
the
4
last
weeks?
time. I cannot recall the last time we had a policeman come to that location.
5, 6 weeks ago.
What do you mean?
You said every 6 weeks?
Okay, I was wrong.
Okay.
I mean, really.
Do you have
We can
security?
look at the police records. I mean, I really and truly, we don't have a lot of police
Do
coming.
you have security on the property?
We have our people there. We don't have security there. That's our people.
So
Overnight.
are you people trained in security measures?
No, we don't lock the place. They can leave if they want to, but that'd be like leaving That'd be like leaving Beaches Hospital. They can leave if they want to also. It's no different really.
Yeah, but they don't live at Beaches Hospital.
Well, if they're in the hospital, they can leave at any moment. AMA, against medical
Right,
advice.
but you're saying your people live in the, or live there.
Yes.
Well, there is a difference between that and a hospital.
Well, the fact is, against medical advice is against medical advice. If someone wants to leave against medical advice, that's their choice. We're not a locked unit. We're not a psychiatric unit. The difference is, if you're a psychiatric mental health unit, then you have a locked door. We don't have any locked doors. I've been doing this 44 years. I've never worked in a place that had locked doors because I don't want to work in psychiatric units.
Is there a difference between the people that are allowed to leave and the people that are not going to be allowed to leave? Can you just walk me through those differences? Why aren't these people going to be allowed to leave?
Because of their
Why
level of
severity?
care. They're in the residential treatment. Now, we have people over at our place on Second Street that get the kind of freedom that I was talking about we have currently at this location. Because they're at a different level. They're at partial hospitalization. They go to therapy at our facility over on 12th Street. They go in the morning for 3 hours. They go home and have lunch. They go back at 3 o'clock for 2 more hours. Then they go home and have dinner. Then we take them out to a 12-step meeting at night. And then on weekends, if they've reached a certain level of participation, they get passes to go out. It's kind of like transition into living, you know.
Yeah. Would you say that the people that aren't allowed to leave, which is going to be this new clientele that you're talking about, be any more unpredictable than the ones that are allowed to leave?
No. We have the same thing at Tides Edge right now. They're not allowed to leave. You know, if that makes sense, because they're at the same level of care that these people would be, residential. The first level of care is detoxification, then you move to residential, then you move to partial hospitalization, which is a lot more limited and gives them a lot more freedom where they can learn to cope with life.
So this is residential, that you're, am I understanding?
The level of care is residential, yes.
I just want to clarify that. Okay, thank you.
Versus when you reference Tides Edge, that's a commercial facility.
No,
It's a house as well, condo, whatever.
okay, right now, we're asking for this place to be similar to Tides Edge. It'll be the same level of care as Tides Edge, with the exception of, we won't do detox there. We'll do a whole lot of detox in Tides Edge when we have patients in our residential after they finish detox at Tides Edge. The ones who are appropriate will come over here. That's the plan. But they'll still be the same level as the people in residential at Tides Edge. This is the second level of care.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm now going to open the public hearing. Do we have any speaking cards?
Well, yes, Mr. Chair, we do. I think the first one's Teresa Miller. You want me to call her up? Teresa Miller, please.
Evening. Good evening, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address.
Teresa Miller, 1236 First Street North.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thanks. So really, I came here tonight because I had more questions that I really felt like we needed some answers to, some of which have been addressed. But I think in general, one of the concerns, again, has been expressed already, is the general density and the traffic that's going on. We're trying to be a very pedestrian-friendly city, especially up and down First Street and the proximity to First Street. You know, could be some issues with the increased traffic. I was also concerned because of the definition of group home was just 6 or more, and I don't understand what restriction is placed on that. I understand we're being told that it's 17 right now, and that's what's licensed for. But is there the possibility, if this is granted, to come back and say, oh, now we want to do an addition, we're going to take it to 25, 30, what's the limit on that? So I would like to understand what's going on with that. And then saying that this is a residential facility, what is the turnover? How often will new people be coming in and out? Will that move in and out process be disruptive to the neighbors? Again, I back up onto the block that this property is going to be on. So those are some of our concerns that we have. The number of staff cars was addressed. Generally, the appearance of the property has not been kept to a high quality, a high standard. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that to try and keep the property in a little better condition. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any other parts?
Yes, ma'am, we do. Mike B.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address.
Mike Boyles, 102 10th Avenue North.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I was quite surprised to see this notice pop up because this property was purchased about 2 months after I moved into my home. And I was not given any notice that this would be the facility that it is today, as were none of the neighbors that I've spoken to. So to see this notice pop up now explains a lot. The first 2 or 3 years of this facility, it seemed to be all men in there. And it was a lot of commotion. There were cops called in the middle of the night. There was fighting in the street. There was people up on the balconies catcalling women as they were walking up and down the street to the beach, and it was disruptive to the neighborhood. So much so that many neighbors were trying to figure out, why is this being allowed to be here? And nobody ever got the answers. In reading this policy here, or the code, it sounds like they've been breaking the code by having 17 beds when they're only allowed 4 or 6. And you can see that in the traffic that comes and goes there. There's constantly buses coming and going, shuffling people in and out of there. This also isn't similar to a multifamily unit that's on the left and the right, or the east and the west of the unit. Those other units are long-term renters, long-term leases. They're people that own the property. They're there to build the neighborhood. And so that's the type of community that we're trying to build in this area, in this neighborhood of Jax Beach. And I personally, and a lot of neighbors agree with me, don't think a facility like this fits in there. And granting them the right to put more people in there could just run into more problems, because we've already been seeing problems arise. Now, I will say that, yes, it seems like they don't let people on the balcony anymore. It seems like they've switched it over to where it's only women that are staying there. But still, who's to say that letting more people come in doesn't bring back bad actors and take us back to where we were 5 years ago, where we were calling all the time. So that's just a concern. Cop cars in the middle of the night with lights flashing into our windows is also something that we don't like. We get it on First Street all the time. Now we have to get it coming down the street as well. Those are just concerns of mine, concerns of neighbors. And we just feel like this should be in a commercial area, not next to homes with long-term tenants that are trying to just live in a nice, peaceful, quiet neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other speaker cards?
One more. Kate Clifford, please.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address.
My name is Kate Clifford, and I put the wrong address on my card. I put my office address, not my home address, so I'm not sure which one you wanted.
You can list your home address, that's
My
fine.
home is 420 Palm Beach Boulevard. My address, my office is in Jax Beach. I've worked with this group for a long, long while.
Bear with me 1 second. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I've worked with this group over the years. The building that they've referred to as Tide's Edge is a commercial building, and they had a spot zoning on it. They've turned it into one of the premier detox facilities. It sits very comfortably in a professional office park. Nobody even knows what they do in there and so forth. They help many, many people. I think sometimes there's confusion between the process of helping people with addictions get through. There's a critical stage, which is the detox, and not all patients or clients go through detox. And they transition, depending on how they do, into different levels of care. During these comments that have been made, is it residential? Residential is a term that they use for those patients that are in the inpatient portion of their treatment. One of the things I think that was brought up was the number of people, the number of beds, the number of clients that will be in the facility will decrease from 17 to 12. You can limit it, it's fine, that's what's there. That does not include, they all have public rooms, the dining areas, the kitchens, and so on and so forth, but that from a bed point of view, that's what they're referring to. Parking, there are five parking spaces on the site. None of the clients are allowed to bring vehicles there. They're not allowed to drive to and from. Family members are not invited. You don't go there and visit your family member and so forth. The typical stay is approximately 30 days for most people, and then they transition into another level of care, which is typically an inpatient and outpatient program. This use has been for 7 years, has been used this way, and it was only because they went in to downgrade it to a lesser intensity that they realized that this conditional use had never been granted at the initial time when they moved in, and Christian actually brought it up. There's 24-hour supervision. There are not people coming and going. The vans will no longer take people to go for treatment because the person giving treatment will be one of the staff members that's holding group meetings and so forth in the house for only those clients. So it should be a less intensive use, has more supervision, has less traffic, and if there are continuing, and I certainly hear what neighbors say. If there's continuing problems, then I'm not involved, but I'm very passionate about this group. They've done a lot of good work.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone in the audience who's not filled out a speaker's card that wishes to address us? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Yes, there's some.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. Please, by all means, come address us and then fill out a card before you leave. I just missed your hand there for a moment.
Sorry.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mike Kibler. I live at 1236 First Street North.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I would just like to echo the comments of the gentleman who spoke earlier before the previous lady. I hear the operator of this property's comments, and it sounds nice. But frankly, I think this neighborhood is not the right place for this kind of facility. I think probably a commercial area such as Tides Edge would be more appropriate. We live in a very peaceful, quiet neighborhood, and we just kind of like to keep it that way. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. And please do fill out a speaker's card.
Okay.
Would anyone else like to address us? I'm looking very clear. Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Commissioners, do we have a discussion?
Let's let Christian answer a couple of those questions, like the 17 beds and the 46.
So, the number of residents is going to be determined by both their license and the fire marshal. So typically two beds per room is usually the standard, but the total number would be determined, again, by their license and their the fire marshal's inspection. So they're currently licensed for up to 17 beds. They're stating that they're reducing that. So it would depend on the final layout of the building, but they can have up to 17, but they're proposing 12.
So they have 17 currently, they're dropping down to 12, but yet they're currently, if I'm reading the code right, they only could have 6 or less currently.
No, they just, they're transitioning what their use is, which is
Right.
requiring the change of use. So they're gonna, like, they could have 6 or less, basically by right.
Right.
They-
So what are they operating under now that allows them to have 17?
They're a different facility, basically. They're a treatment facility versus a group home, under the state.
But how is that different than still the house sitting on the street?
In this location.
I'm curious, I'm not getting what you're asking, I'm sorry.
So it looks like the zoning, what they're trying to go from is 6 or less.
No,
And now they're going into group home, which is 6 or more.
no,
Right,
they currently have 17, and they're a residential treatment facility, which is a different use of the code. That's also allowed in this zoning.
Are they-
Now they're going to a group home, which is a different use than it's
So we allow whatever the license says, no matter what, anywhere?
No, it's a approval process through the board or through staff, depending on the intensity of the use.
No, nothing, that's all.
As I said in the report, all the uses listed are available as options under the code, which includes halfway houses, nursing facilities, rooming and boarding homes, and I think there's a few others that are listed in there. They're all similar, more intense than a single-family home, maybe more intense than multifamily, depending on the number of units, but they function differently from traffic and, potentially hours of operation, those kind of things can be different. So they're treated differently under the code. They're all type of residential in the sense that people live there.
But didn't the second speaker say that they were here because the conditional use wasn't granted the first time? And that's why they came back to get the conditional use granted?
I don't honestly know. I didn't find any information about the previous use, but we're still somewhat limited in what we can find on our network. The property has been owned by a number of different corporations that appear to be doing something similar. In 2012, it was granted to RMS Residential Property LLC, and then it was purchased in 2013.
So it's basically been the same thing since 2012?
I think so. Like I said, I wasn't able to find any specific records, but the facility's been operating there for, I think he said 7 years. So 2015 was the time that they purchased it.
Madam Chair, again. I'm still confused. When was the conditional use granted?
I don't know if there was one or not.
Okay, so this could be the first time.
In the sense that, let me back up for a second.
That makes a difference.
I wasn't at the city at the time, and I couldn't find any records that said they did or didn't. However, they've been a licensed facility in the city through business tax, which requires a copy of their state license. So I doubt they could have gotten that far without going through the planning department, but neither myself nor Heather were here in 2015. So I can't say if it was something that just was approved or fell through the cracks, but nonetheless, the city's known of their existence this whole time.
Well, here's my issue. We've heard testimony from the neighbors about their feelings about this operation, some good, some bad. But if there was no conditional use ever granted, and this was the first time, I would say it would be absolutely appropriate to deny this conditional use. Absolutely appropriate. If it has been grandfathered in with a conditional use, then I would say it'd be absolutely appropriate to leave it and let it continue. But since we don't know, I don't know how we make a fair decision to the people that live there and see the activities that make them uncomfortable, and to the people that are getting help from the company that does this for profit. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good stuff. So I'm confused on how we're supposed to decide this evening.
But the second speaker, she said that this came back because they didn't have the conditional use. And even though they went down from 17 to 6, they had to get the conditional use.
Let me clarify, just, if they went from a approved conditional use for a residential treatment facility and wanted to become a group home, that would still require them to come before the board. So it's not just, like, even if it was like the previous one was a multifamily, that was previously a multifamily, the change in ownership in that case triggered it. But a change in use also triggers a conditional use, so,
So is this a new conditional use?
this is, yes.
Okay.
Standalone, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Wait, I'm confused, so, but we are not aware whether the residential treatment facility had the residential treatment facility use required a conditional use approval, is that correct?
It would have required one, yes.
And we're not aware whether they had it.
I'm not aware that the city forced them to go through the process.
So that wasn't that your point, Mr. Dahl, that
My point was about whether or not this is a conditional use application, and it is, and it stands alone from whatever was happening before. That's what I was trying to deconflict. Is that right, Christian? This was.
Yes, I mean, every conditional use is decided on its own merits.
Yep, okay, that's what I was looking for.
but I do then have to say that the planning department's report says that this use is less intense than the previous use. I am a little.
No, it doesn't say that because there wasn't a previous use. Does it say
It
there was?
does,
Oh, okay.
it's less intense.
It's being used as a treatment facility with 17 residents up to
Well, it
this
says
point.
it's less intense, but they're authorized for 6 or more, so at any point, if they wanted to go from 12 to more, they could.
Yeah, are there limits?
Well, it's less intense in the sense that the use is less intense. A group home, it's not under the state law, and it's not under the code. A group home is considered more of a residential use as opposed to a treatment facility, which is where they would do things like detox and stuff like that.
But you're not able to tell us whether the group home use has an upper limit that they could not exceed, for example.
Well, the limit would be their license and the number of rooms that they have and the number of beds. So if they're at 17 now, I would assume based on what the applicant said, with the number of rooms they have, that is the maximum they could have under the state law and under fire code. So they're saying they're gonna go to 12. That's what they've proposed to you. You could certainly, if you're going in the direction of approving it, condition it at 12. But as it stands right now, their limitation is going to be physically the space in the building and their license.
Okay, so the planning department's assessment that the use was less intense was based on what? Because on
Both the use and the number of residents. So they're gonna have less clients, and group home is a less intense use than a treatment facility.
less intense because,
The type of work that they're doing. A group home is in essence a place where people reside. They have a certain degree of oversight. It's not necessarily a medical facility. It's not a residential treatment facility. It's not a nursing home. It's a place where unrelated adults live. It could be for people with physical disabilities. It could be for people with mental health disabilities. As long as they're capable of functioning without constant medical attention, it's just considered a residential facility or a group home.
okay, thank you for clarifying.
Ms. Chair, I think Kate Clifford was going to come up and speak again, and maybe you could explain that the public hearing had been closed. That's why we didn't want her to speak, because you had your opportunity. When the public hearing is closed, then it's over for the crowd. I didn't want you to think I was waving.
Oh, no, I realized it as soon as I stood up, I'm sorry.
Going forward, currently, with their business model, how they're doing it, they have negligible parking, right? So I think it says they have 5 to 6 spots, and right now they have a van, they have 2 or 3 staff people, so they'll have 4 or 5 cars, plus the occasional in and out person visiting, whatever that every house has. What's to stop them from next year saying all these guys can have cars? And now we have 12 cars there.
Well, the land development code's parking standard would come into effect. So there are different standards for parking, and there's different standards based on the uses.
Right, but as we sit here, we say that 7 years ago, this didn't even come through anybody, so could it be 7 years before, anything happens with 15 cars on the street?
No, I mean, we have police, we have code enforcement. I mean, I think as a department, very responsive to those things.
I don't know if you have this information, but is there any chance you have how many times the police have been there?
I do not know.
Is there any chance of finding out definitively whether or not there was a conditional use in place for the existing use?
I'm
Because it's
tempted
sort
to
of
check.
left out there, you know, if there was an error made, who made the error? And we're kind of leaving it.
Well, it's not about who made the error, it's about what was the previous determination. We don't care who the error was, just what was done prior. That would be the question.
Yes, I'd love to be clear on, you know, kind of the facts of how this use began. Is that something that is sort of determinable in a short time frame, or?
I'm not sure if something that's determinable at all at this point. When this was determined to be an acceptable use, or when they got their initial building, or business tax license, predates pretty much everybody in the planning department at this point. If it was determined through a interpretation by the director at the time, or something along those lines, that didn't have to come before you guys, I don't know if that's gonna be documented anywhere. But as I said, they were given a business license, and that's something that does get reviewed by the planning department. So in theory, somebody was aware of what they were doing and agreed to allow it. I just don't have any details in the system that say specifically when that happened.
On the planning commission, on that license, there's no time signature, like, because you said it came through the planning commission. Who signs off on it? Who because
I have to have the clerk's office pull those records, but somebody would look at it.
would it be on that document you just talked about? No?
I don't have any idea.
Okay, so we seem to be saying that there doesn't seem to be a question that the city of Jacksonville Beach wasn't aware of the residential treatment facility that was there. Whether or not the kind of all the bells and whistles, including a conditional use review, through the planning department happened, we don't know, and it sounds like perhaps we won't ever know, but it's true to say, and Mr. Copley, correct me if I'm wrong, that the city of Jacksonville acknowledged this use and it's okay with it.
I mean, in essence, yeah, the business license would have been the only determining factor at that point if it wasn't sent to the board. But yeah, I mean, in essence, somebody looked at it and said, okay, you have your state license, you have your this, you have your that, you're free to go and conduct business.
Do they normally send a business license to the board?
No, they go through the planning department. If we see something that requires conditional use, that's how it ends up before you guys. Either we catch it at the building permit stage, or we catch it at the...
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may interject, just to make sure everyone's is on the right track.
Sir, can you just identify yourself?
Sure, David Miggett, City Attorney, City of Jacksonville Beach.
Thank you.
And Mr. Popley, if I misspeak anywhere on the planning side, please interject.
Happily.
So, the way I read this is, according to the staff report, they are now applying for a group home of 6 or more. And under, I'll try not to bore you too much with code citations, but it's important. Under 34-340 D1 of our Land Development Code, in this zoning district RM2, a group home with 6 or more residents is only permitted as a conditional use. And that would bring us to the conditional use criteria that you have to weigh to determine whether or not, based on the evidence you've heard, the evidence in the staff report, to determine whether or not they meet that criteria. And I'm gonna, do you all have code? Okay. And it's in, 34-231, and there's 11 subparagraphs that I prefer not to read if you have them, but that's the criteria I think you all need to focus on and make a decision based on the evidence you've heard and seen and read, whether or not that criteria is met. So, or weigh that criteria to determine whether or not you think a conditional use is appropriate for this property. So I think what may have happened in the past is not the dispositive issue. I think you need to focus on these 11 pieces of criteria, because they are trying to get a conditional use for a group home of 6 or more. So this is what our code says we have to weigh. Does anyone have any questions on that, or can I clarify anything?
That's very clear.
No, thank you.
I do have one last question though. So, yeah, I always do, and I'm sorry. Okay, I totally get it for this one. What happens if we were to vote it down, just out of curiosity? Are they still allowed to operate at the higher rate? Because right now we're going from 16 to 12. If we say no, do they keep operating at 16?
So I don't have an answer right now. I want to look at it closer, but ultimately that's not what you should be basing your decision on. So, and it's a very relevant question.
Makes
Not-
total
not for-
sense.
not
I
for
understand.
tonight- Not for tonight's purpose.
Totally.
I mean, anyone, if, let's say hypothetically this gets voted down and anyone can make a code enforcement complaint if they think that their current situation is in violation of what's allowed. I'd have to research that more, so I can't give you an answer off the cuff on that, but I don't think it's.
That was crystal clear. I understand what you're saying.
I have one more thing. Justin had asked about parking. So for rest homes, nursing homes, sanitariums, convalescent homes, they all basically are required to have one space for 2 beds. So if they have 12 beds, they would need 6 parking spaces. And considering that they have basically an entire paved alley along the side of their property, the driveway I should say, and the 4 parking spaces out front, I believe they have adequate parking, if not more so.
Any discussion?
I think we killed that horse.
I mean, I was considering suggesting a deferral, but I'm not sure if there's anything that we can learn from having additional time. I just wanted to express that I was considering it, but I'm not sure I'm considering what it is on there. Do we have a motion?
I have one more comment, unless someone has a motion. I would like to make the comment first. This is the bread and butter for the planning commission. These are the reason we're here. And it's a conditional use request, which means it's not a use of right, it's conditional. The number 1 conditional use is consistency with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. And the first page, it's the first one, including standards for buildings, structural intensities. That doesn't apply in densities. That really doesn't apply in intensities of use. That's what they're talking about. So I think there's something there. Thank you.
Well, if I could just kind of add to that discussion though, under 5, conditional use, adverse effect on the value of adjacent property, I mean, it's been used as a residential group home with the city's understanding for years. So I don't think, and I certainly heard that from some of the neighbors, and I understand it, but I think we've kind of negated that point by letting them do it. However,
No, we haven't let them do it. That's what we're here to decide tonight. Up to now they have, but that doesn't mean we can't decide in the past. So I think number 5 does have in my opinion, I think there's an adverse effect on the value of the adjacent property. And we've had 2 people that came in and testified as to that.
Through the chair, without any expert testimony on property values, I don't think you can consider that.
I withdraw my opinion.
further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
reject.
Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, second, sorry.
May we have a roll call, please?
Colleen White,
Object.
Justin Lerman,
Object.
Wait, are we saying yes or no?
A yea
Yes,
is for
discussion.
denial.
Yeah.
Yes to his motion.
If I may clarify again, so, motion to reject was it, which is a motion to deny. So that's the motion on the table. So if you vote yes on roll call, you are voting in favor of rejecting it. And if you vote no, you're opposed to that motion.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, please start again with roll call.
Colleen White,
Yes.
Justin Lerman,
Yes.
David Dahl,
I didn't hear the motion. I did not hear the motion.
The motion was to deny the
Deny.
application.
Justin Henderson,
Yes.
Margot Moran.
No.
I do think it's important, and just out of curiosity, does this go to city council at all?
Nope, you are the final say.
And never mind. I was going to add information for city council because we were told to do that, but at this point, there's no need.
So if I could just clarify one more time for the record, the motion to deny was approved by a 4-1 vote, is that correct? Did I get that correct? Okay.
Yes, sir. May we have the planning department report, please?
Yes. So, just as a reminder, everyone on this board has to fill out the Form 1 through the state by, I believe, July. That's the financial disclosure form. I understand it is available online, and you can file online now, so that should be a lot easier. And then we do not have any other applications until the 22nd of July, so enjoy your summer break.
Is there any further discussion? Meeting is